Welcome back to the third part of One Man's Faith. We are in Numbers, and we're looking now at Numbers 13. God has said, send out 12 men, 12 esteemed men, 12 men of renown, 12 leaders, okay? And it said they went through the land, and they were, the last thing we read, they were in the valley of Eshcol, and they cut down, what they said, a single cluster of grapes, a single cluster of grapes. And they had to be carried between two men on poles. That's how big and monstrous these grapes were. And they also carried some pomegranates and some figs. And that place is called the Valley of Eshcol because of the cluster which the sons of Israel cut down from there. And when they returned from spying out the land at the end of 40 days, they proceeded to come to Moses and Aaron and to all the congregation of the sons of Israel in the wilderness at Paran, at Kadesh. And they brought back word to them and to all the congregation and showed them the fruit of the land. Thus they told him, Moses, and said, we went into the land where you sent us, and it certainly does flow with milk and honey. And this is its fruit, big fruit. Nevertheless, in other words, but the people who live in the land are strong. The cities are fortified and large, and we saw the descendants of Anak there. Amalek is living in the land of the Negev, and the Hittites and the Jebusites and the Amorites are living in the hill country, and the Canaanites are living by the sea and by the side of the Jordan. And Caleb quieted the people. Why did Caleb have to quiet the people? Because they were complaining. And we'll see that in a minute. So it says, Caleb, in other words, Caleb tried to quiet the people. And Caleb said, we should by all means go up and take possession of it, for we shall overcome it. And the men who had gone up with him, the 10, because Caleb and Joshua also went, they were part of the 12, they didn't complain and tell this. It was the other 10. And they said, we are not able to go up against the people, for they are too strong for us. So they gave out to the sons of Israel a bad report of the land which they had spied out, saying, the land through which we have gone and spying it out is a land that devours its inhabitants. And all the people whom we saw in it are men of great size. There also were the Nephilim, the sons of Anak, as part of the Nephilim. In other words, the giants. And we became like grasshoppers in our own sight. And so we were in their sight. They saw them. I don't know if the Anak saw them, but they perceived that the Anak thought of them as grasshoppers because they were giants. As a giant, they were probably close to 10 feet tall, okay? Maybe even taller. And it said that all the congregation lifted up their voice and cried, and the people wept all night. And all the sons of Israel grumbled against Moses and Aaron, and the whole congregation said to them, would that we had died in the land of Egypt. Oh, here they go back to cussing again. They're using that cuss word, Egypt. Or would that we had died in the wilderness. And why is the Lord bringing us into this land to fall by the sword? Our wives and our little ones will become plunder. And would it not be better for us to return to Egypt? And they said to one another, let us appoint a leader and return to Egypt. What happened? They've been walking with God. God has been leading them by a cloud and by fire. God took them through the Red Sea, split it open. It was dry ground, walls of water on both sides as they walked through. God provided manna for them. God daily provided water for them. And I've told you before, it would have taken 300 boxcars of food. I think I got that right. Maybe I got that backwards. Hold on a second. Let me go back and look again. There was a lot of 30 boxcars of food, 300 tank cars of water. That's what was required to feed the 3 million people, more or less 3 million. 30 boxcars of food, 300 tank cars of water. That is a lot. God provided it. He sent quail. Quail would come, I think it was every week, and they would just come and plop down around their camp so that they could go out and get them and have meat. God did all these things. God took bitter water and turned it into sweet by having Moses cut down a tree and throw it in it. Remember that? And God said, hey, I'm taking you. He said, hey, build me a temple, a tabernacle, so I can be with you. And they watched as the cloud stayed over the tabernacle, and at night it turned into a pillar of fire. And now they're saying, why did God bring us out here to kill us? What's going on? Well, let me read you something, because this is interesting. In Deuteronomy chapter 1. Now, Deuteronomy, we got Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy is the next book. Numbers is really more about their wandering in the wilderness than it is about their being numbered. We're in chapter 13 and chapter 14. From 15 on, it's about their wandering in the wilderness and things that happened. At the end of that 40 years, and the reason they wandered, we'll see this in a minute, the reason they wandered was for the 600,000 plus, that was, well, that's going to be more. It's going to be the 600,000 men plus their wives. Anybody over 20 had to die off. And it took 40 years. Once that is finished, at the end of the 40 years, they come back to the same spot, or close to it, near Kadesh, and Moses delivers his last message to them. Now, during the wandering, Moses did something. God told him to only strike the rock once for the water. He got mad at the people, struck it twice, and because of that, God said, you're not going to enter the promised land, okay? So Moses is giving them what Deuteronomy really means is second law. Moses goes back over through the law, and this is what he says as he's introducing. He says, see, the Lord your God has placed the land before you. Go up, take possession as the Lord your God of your fathers has spoken to you. Do not fear or be dismayed. For all of you approached me and listen. For all of you approached me and said, let us send men before us that they may search out the land and bring back to us word of the way by which we should go, and the cities which we are to enter. This is Deuteronomy 1:22. Then all of you approached me and said, let's send the spies in. So obviously what we've just read here in chapter 13 is Moses going to God And God's saying, okay, pick a man from each tribe and send them over and let them bring back the report. Okay? We have 10 that says, no, we can't do it. We have 2 that says, yes, we can. Now keep that in mind. Keep that in mind, because when the people said, let's pick a leader that'll take us back to Egypt, in Numbers 14, verse 5, it says, Moses and Aaron fell on their faces in the presence of the assembly, and Joshua the son of Nun and Caleb the son of Jephunneh, for those who had spied out the land, they tore their clothes. And they spoke to all the congregation of the sons of Israel, saying, the land which we passed through to spy out is exceedingly good land. If the Lord is pleased with us, then he will bring us into this land and give it to us. A land which flows with milk and honey. Only do not rebel against the Lord, and do not fear the people of the land, for they are our prey. Their protection has been removed from them, and the Lord is with us. Do not fear them. But all the congregation said to stone them with stones. So Joshua is trying to say, listen, we can do it. And they don't want to hear that. Listen, 10 came back. 10 leaders of 10 of the tribes came back and said, we can't do it. Leaders now. Men who should know. Men who should be brave enough to think that, sure, we can take it. But no, they came back and said, we can't. Only the 2, Joshua and Caleb, said yes. Now, Joshua has been Moses' right-hand man, okay? So they could probably see where he's going to say that anyway because he's in with Moses. Caleb, not sure, but he was a leader that saw the truth. And he said, yes, we can. All right, so let's take our last break. Think about that for a minute, and I'll be right back.